Hey guys, it's your girl DJ Sims. I'm here with DJ Limelight for the Culture Podcast.
Yeah, we have a real special guest today. Someone that I always make time for, and I always gotta catch up with your social media presence as well, because you're such a unique character, bro. And it's been 7 years since we last linked up on the radio, actually. We're talking LAZARUS, a rapper / doctor. I mean, that's crazy. What's happening, bro?
What's good, man? I'm just happy to be back in London, back in the UK. It's been a while. Man, it's good to see you again, DJ Limelight.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And it's your first time meeting Sims as
well.
Yeah,
first time. Nice to meet you, DJ
Seen
Sims.
you a lot on socials. I find your journey very, very unique. So I think we can kickstart the convo with just letting people know the fact that, number one, you're a rapper and a doctor. Like, we need to talk about that.
Definitely.
I think it's very unique, as I said. So where would you say your journey started? On the doctor side of things first, and then we can talk about the rapper. But just for you, where did your journey start?
Yeah, I mean, medicine just kind of crept into my life. You know, earlier on, my grandmother on both my father and mother side, they both passed away from diabetes. So I was always kind of inclined towards that. And then obviously being a Desi, being a South Asian, it's like the hierarchy that's established from the day you're born is that if you're a doctor, you're like the king of the world. So that in combination with me being inquisitive about the world around me, I ventured in that pathway, and I was just real good in my classes. I did well in school. And before I knew it, I got a presidential scholarship to Wayne State University. And when I had to figure out what my major was going to be, I was going to do biology, pre-med. So that's where that started. And I kept on that journey. And then hip hop started to intersect into that whole equation. And that's where things got a little crazy.
Yeah, and you mentioned going crazy because most people in that situation will pick one or the other, I guess. Yeah. Was there a time like that for you at the beginning, maybe, where you was like, you know what, I need to pick one or the other? Yeah. Or was it always a thing like, I'm always gonna rap?
Nah, I never used to think that it'd be even possible to do both things at the same time. It never even like crossed my mind. It was one or the other. So the battle I always had to, face was, am I gonna be a doctor or am I gonna be a rapper? But the thing about it is, I was so passionate to be a rapper, and I was ready to give up medicine for it. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, but medicine is a part of who I am as well. And then everybody around me would be like, listen, I'm like, I want to do both. You got to pick one. Let's be realistic. You cannot go to medical school and still be rapping on the side. And then I talked to medical students that were like first year, second years. They're like, bro, you don't got time to call your family. What you talking about having another like thing that you're doing on the side? So it was like I had to give up hip hop at the moment. That's what I thought I was doing. And then when I got accepted to medical school, you understand at that time, there was like a study group of a bunch of Desis in there too. And we all, aspiring to get into medical school. And a lot of the people that I was studying with, they didn't get into med school. That's all they wanted to do in their life. Mm-hmm. When I got my acceptance, it was like, I can't just let this go. So I took the rap to the side. I went to medical school. And in my first year in the anatomy cadaver lab, I get a call from the Discovery Channel. And they heard one of my songs that was playing in Detroit on the radio station. And they were like, hey, we want to bring you on for this documentary. So I was just like, rap's not leaving me alone.
Yeah.
So it was just from that point onward, I was like, I'm going to make time for it whenever I can. Time went on, medical school, residency. Then I became a full-fledged physician. Hip hop was still there.
I love it. I feel like it's good that you always, made it a part of you and you didn't let that go. But for example, maybe not in your case, but do you feel like the conventional route of going down like the whole, university, studying, medicine, becoming a doctor is like kind of pushed onto kids?
I think it is. I think that's definitely pushed a lot. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I think that the people need to know what they want to do, what they're passionate about. So if I wasn't interested in medicine, if I didn't have a liking towards the field, then I wouldn't want anybody to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer just off of pressure and being pushed into that field. I think that you have to genuinely want to do it. I mean, this is life or death on the line. Like the patients that you see and encounter, you got to treat them and be as good as a doctor as you can be. So I would definitely not pressure somebody to doing something that they're not interested in. But at the same time, if they have other passions and hobbies and things that they aspire to want to be and do, you should also be able to encourage that as well.
No, 1,000,000%. And what I really like about your journey is that you really are proud of both sides of the spectrum, and also you make it very apparent that you can do more than one thing with your life,
right,
and be successfully active in both fields and embrace both fields, and people will embrace you for doing both. What would you say was like the breakthrough in music though? What was like the first thing that really comes to mind when it comes to like success as a rapper? Yeah,
so I was in residency. You know, I'm making mixtapes, I'm making CDs, albums, but it's all within like the realm of just being this underground MC, somebody who just loves to rap. I mean, I did battle raps all through Detroit and all that. It was in 2013 when I was invited by Russell Simmons, the co-founder of Def Jam,
of course,
to his house in Manhattan. And it was a committee that he sits on called the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. So one of the board members of that committee watched one of my videos, and he said, yo, this guy's he's a Pakistani American, and he raps about a lot of like social, political topics and conversations. You need to check him out. Russell Simmons saw it, and he's like, can he come over here to my place for this event that I'm throwing and put a spoken word together about bringing people together of different races? So I got the call, I put it together. I was there. It's on YouTube, and Russell Simmons, he's on there. He gave me a standing ovation, and then he put me on a platform called All Def Digital, which was at the time where the YouTube platform was blowing up on YouTube. So that was his channel. So I started producing content for Russell Simmons. So I would consider that to be like the first breakthrough moment for me, where it felt to me like hip hop is moving. It's really getting out of just the studio or my friend's studio or like, you know, recording somewhere in Detroit. Now it's like you got people like Russell Simmons getting involved in the career. So once I started producing content for Russell Simmons, like I did a song called Open Heart Surgery with Bizarre from D12. So those guys kind of nurtured me from the beginning. Like they were watching me battle from the Eminem's whole team, like, you know, Swifty, Kaniva, Proof, rest in peace. So they used to nurture me when I was in the battle rap circuit. Then after
this is all happening in Detroit.
That was in Detroit, but then the Russell Simmons thing was in New York.
New York, of course.
So once I got that situation, I went back to my guys from Detroit. And I said, hey, look, I got the situation going with Russell Simmons. They're excited because they see me graduating basically in the rap world, right? So now that you got this little clout going with Russell Simmons, like, yeah, let's work together on something. So me and Swifty started doing records. Me and Bizarre did that Open Heart Surgery where I lyrically perform Open Heart Surgery on Bizarre, like lyrically on the song. We got an award for it in Times Square, which was crazy. So yeah, we did that, and then as it built up, I continued to just kind of like build connections, network. I connected with Chuck D afterwards as well, and he became a big mentor of mine. You know, Public Enemy's #1. So he's been a big supporter of me since all the way back then. Continuing on a journey.
I think I've seen him post you on social
all the time, all the time, and he'll always put tweets out there like the most relevant MC of all time, and like, you know, like he really looks highly upon like the things that I've been doing, especially since I'm a doctor and a rapper. He loves that because he wants hip hop to go in that type of direction, an education direction. A lot of the record companies that I then sat with afterwards had a problem with me being educated. That's where I started developing the fervor and anger that I really started to develop in my music, is because I would be sitting with these record companies, right? And they'd be like, you're dope, you're fire, but there's a problem. What's this thing about you saying you're a doctor and your rhymes? I'm like, yeah, I'm in medical school or whatever it was. I'm like, I'm a physician. They're like, nah, you got to just hide that or something. Don't mention that. He said, as soon as the public finds out that you're a doctor, they're going to like throw rocks at you. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's crazy. I never thought of it like that. And then I was like, do I really need to change my whole image and everything? And even like being dissy, they're like, why don't you try to tell people you're like Latino or something? So it was like the whole image, they wanted to shift it and change it. I'm like, I'm over here trying to be proud of who I am, proud to be Muslim, proud to be Pakistani, proud to be a physician. And they're trying to use that against me and say that that's not going to be beneficial towards, you know, telling your message to the public. So then I just took the independent route.
Who was saying this to you? Like,
it was, I don't want to put the names on the table, but it's a lot of the big record companies.
Big record companies,
a lot of the big record companies.
This is spoken about a lot.
Because I got the connection to those guys after I started producing the content with Russell Simmons. So now a lot of the big record companies were like
reaching out, wanting to change your angle.
Change the whole angle, but like, we know how to take you to the next level. But you got to talk about you. And they start playing records from other artists like Future and other people. And they'll be like, look, you start modeling your flow like this. And I'm like, how you going to tell me what to do and how to sound and who to be? Like, this is what makes me excited to be a rapper, is explaining who I am, like
It
my
what
journey.
makes you unique as
That's
well.
what
Like
makes-
you have such a unique story.
Right.
But like, do you ever feel like you were pressured, or do you ever feel like you wanted to, like, you thought for a second, let me change and like listen to that, so that you thought that would make you successful?
I mean, obviously there's the contemplation that, like, you know, we're talking about radio play, we're talking about TV appearances, we're talking about, you know, being blasted all over, you know, social media or wherever, and having an imprint on your name to get people's attention. But I'm like, what's it all worth if I'm not even being myself doing it? It's like, I feel like I constantly feel like I'm just like, you know, just trying to be a wannabe or a fake entity.
And I feel like for you, you can see it like that a lot more. Like, it's more clear to you to see it like that as a doctor as well, because you're dealing with some real life madness issues when it comes to being a doctor on a day-to-day, right? So then when it comes to playing with music career, you don't want to be coming out and not being yourself, and not being true to
because I feel like eventually, or even sooner than later, people are going to discover that that's not really what you are. That's not who you are. And then that even people are not going to be able to appreciate that. So everything was just counterintuitive. And I was just like, you know what? I talked to Chuck D. I talked to my mentors, Russell Simmons and these guys. And it was just to the point where, like, listen, just be you. Forget all that. Focus on your music. It'll get to where it needs to. It'll get to this audience. And, you know, thank God for social media, because social media has allowed direct access to the consumers, where you no longer have to have that record company, that record deal to get to certain places and platforms. And so, you know, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna push who I am, and I'm gonna exclaim it every time. I'd be like, why are you always talking about you're a doctor? Why do you always put medical stuff? I'd be like, because I'm proud of it. Because I want to prove to them that told me that I couldn't be successful by telling the world that I'm a doctor, and telling the world that I'm Pakistani, telling the world that I'm Muslim. Like, I want to prove them wrong and be like, look, I did it my way and it's working. And you know, you get people that hit me up on social media and be like, hey, like, because of your journey and your story, I'm motivated now to do law school and, you know, singing on the side or a sport on the side, and not feel like I can't do both.
Yeah, you've made it look like it can happen, and
it's difficult as all can be, but it's possible.
It's possible, exactly. But you have to have the passion for both.
And time management.
And what I find is a real turning point, which definitely opened up a lot of eyes, was COVID, because COVID was a time where, like, it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it doesn't even matter how much money you have in the bank. If you're gonna catch COVID especially the beginning stages of COVID, a lot of people was dying off COVID at that point. And I remember watching you religiously on my social media at that point, because you became very vocal about the effects of COVID, what it's doing to people, what symptoms to expect, and also how to avoid certain things and what to eat and what not to eat. I remember you becoming very vocal about that. Yeah,
I was kind of pushed to the forefront, because it was like, I'm a hip hop artist, because I just got done with the Wu-Tang, which we'll talk about the tours. But, you know, I had developed so many relationships in hip hop that when COVID hit, you know, everybody was going home, but for me, it was like I had to go to the hospital where COVID was. So it was just like a battle that I had to face. But then what got me through my days is when I got back from whatever, you know, stuff that I was seeing in the hospital, the deaths, and I had like over 40 patients die in front of me. But then I was able to relay that information, and based on my experiences, I was able to, like, tell people what to do, what not to do, not based on what Dr. Fauci or somebody from the CDC is talking about, but something I can tell them directly that I saw myself. So once I started doing that, the Chuck D's and the Wu-Tang and all these guys that, like, were affiliated with me started sending referrals from all the hip hop people. So now LL Cool J is hitting me up. Now, you know, you got Snoop Dogg or you got, you know, Fat Joe, and you got all these guys that are just hitting me up that, you know, like, rappers that I idolize.
But can you imagine that if you hid the fact that you was a doctor for your rap career back then? You wouldn't even. I wouldn't be
the guy. And then Vlad TV had me on as Dr. Khan, interviewing multiple times. So, like, it opened me up to so many platforms, and I was able to communicate that message. And if being a hip hop artist, it was, like, easy for people to understand coming from me rather than coming from somebody from, like, you know, the medical world strictly.
Yeah.
And even being like, one thing I want to talk about with you is being like Pakistani American, because it's something that you really like, you know, you push forward as well as being a doctor, a rapper. You really push your like background forward. But do you feel like, you know, empowering that through your social media, through being who you are, that's kind of like helped you grow as well and open up different doors?
Of course, because, you know, being Pakistani, first of all, growing up where I, you know, in Detroit and being around the whites and the blacks, I felt like an outcast. I felt like, it just felt like I didn't belong. I was made to feel that way many, many times. People spray painting, go back home.
Oh, man.
You know, people saying all types of racial things towards me and my family. And it got to the point where, like, sometimes I felt like I didn't really belong. I didn't have that sense of belonging. So hip hop, listening to it is what motivated me. It made me feel like, you know, I actually have the ability to stand on my 2 feet and be like, look, I need some respect too. And when I started rapping and started getting and demanding respect from other people, that's when I started to feel like a human, like a real person. Like I'm actually, not only do I belong, but I'm like a conqueror. I'm here, you know. And hip hop gave me that strength, that confidence. And so most definitely, by being this kind of like Pakistani with the inferiority complex, so to speak, to rising up from that and being like, no, I am Pakistani, I am Desi, I'm proud of it, and I am the king of hip hop. And to be able to have that confidence now. And I feel that that's important for anybody going through that type of struggle, whether it be in the UK, whether it be anywhere outside of Pakistan and India. But for Desis growing up, if they ever feel like they're outcast, if they ever feel like, you know, they're not as good as the people around them, it's like, that's the motive. I want to electrify those people and be like, yeah, you're a king.
Yeah,
remember
for
that.
For sure.
You know
and, you know, fast forward to 2025, like, you know, the Desi hip hop world has grown so much.
Crazy.
We're talking from India to Bangladesh to Pakistan, you know, and everything in between that. Even then, you know, if you start to stretch it out to the Middle East, there's so many different languages and cultures that have embraced hip hop, but it's the way, you know, it's been embraced the other way as well, where it's like hip hop also understands the power of hip hop in different communities around the world. Yeah. You know, where's your head at when it comes to like hip hop in Pakistan? Because in Pakistan, musically in general has evolved and has moved, I'd say, not just moved away from things, but has grown from its, you know, original kind of sounds into so many different types of, you know, big Pakistani, you know, dance music's coming out. There's big hip hop artists now. Yeah. Where are you at with that?
It's amazing, man. I'm actually, you know, I'm getting ready to do a massive project, man, where I'm going with one of the guys from D12. You know, I'm actually going to be going out to Pakistan and scouting a lot of the young talent that's brewing out there in Pakistan. This one kid in particular that I signed to my record label, Laz Army Records, his name is Skaki 1000. He's 13 years old, but he is like just phenomenal. This little kid. I saw videos of him when he was rapping as an 8-year-old, and I was just blown away by his technique, by his energy, by his passion, and just being able to talk about. And he comes from Liadi, Karachi, which is one of the poorest areas over there. And for him to be able to take the pain that he goes through on a day-to-day basis, like they don't know when they're gonna have food on the table the next time. And for them to then be able to channel that energy and that frustration and that hunger into communicating through hip hop in Urdu. And then being able to put that online on social media and have people connect to it. I just think that's such a beautiful thing, because it's like retelling the same story of people growing up in Detroit. Now you got people growing up in Pakistan. You got to have people growing up in India or other place or whatever part of the world. We're all going through our own individual struggles and our own, you know, troubles, but we're able to communicate our pain and alleviate our pain through hip hop, the common medium, the common language. And that's what I think is so beautiful about hip hop. And I don't think there's really any other form of music that can do that the way hip hop does. You know what I'm saying? In India, hip hop, I mean, when I started rapping in the early 2000s, they didn't exist. There was no such thing as hip hop in that part of the world. So I witnessed like all these movements happen. And, you know, it's even like, I remember Yo-Yo Honey Singh hit me up when I did a song in Pakistan called Drug of Choice. That was in 2011. And that was before he was Yo-Yo Honey Singh. Raftar hit me up before he was Raftar. Divine hit me up before he was Divine. So I engaged with all these megastars before they were who they are today. And it's just so,
And obviously you got like Nas with Mass Appeal out in India as
you know what I'm saying? So now you got all these areas and all these areas branching out with hip hop. And you know, I'm currently working with Emiwe Bantai, you know, over there in India. And
he's a huge rapper out in India.
Yeah, huge. And so me and him got a collab album that's been kind of held up for a little while. You know, we've been telling the public about it since 2022 when we dropped our first record together called Lobotomy. But you know, it's been a lot of hiccups along the way and just visa issues and things like that. But we got that pending now for this year. It's coming out. We're getting ready to do all our video shoots for it. And I think that's just going to be a big, crazy, crazy record because that's mixing the Detroit world with Antophil, which is where Emiwe's from. So the India and Detroit world are going to come together. And I got a lot of Eminem squad on the project, like Swifty McVeigh, Bizarre, Royce the 5'9", Tech 9. So it's going to be crazy. Like the way that international, and I feel it's important for us to do those international records where you see big artists coming from West and East together. Yeah. And showing the unity of hip hop.
It's definitely becoming more apparent now. I think it's becoming more easy on the air as well. Like even when you're hearing a lot of Afrobeat artists working with South Asian artists, you know, and that sound sonically makes a lot of sense now more than ever. How did the relationship form with Emiwe in the first place? Because, you know, he's made big moves. You know, he raps in his native tongue as well. I mean, you're rapping more in English, more so. Yeah. So how did that link up actually come around?
It just mutually we're making moves. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I know we started engaging on social media. And then we just, you know, he heard a lot of my records. I think he had known about me before. And then when we connected, it was kind of like, yo, let's cook something together. And then we just put together our first record. We actually shot that in Qatar. We went out and shot that video over there. And then from that point, the chemistry was so dope. Even though he was doing his in Hindi, I was doing mine in English. But people loved the record. And it was just like, why don't we do a whole album and do a whole project together? And he was game. He doesn't work with too many people. So he was like, yeah, this is definitely something I want to do.
And like, obviously you're here in the UK now. Yeah. So is there any like artist in the UK that you kind of like want to work with, have your eye on, you're listening to at the moment?
You know, there's a rapper, Low Key. I think he's super dope. I seen him doing a lot of very conscious raps and stuff. I think he's really dope. Who are some of the guys out right now? I know there was he was just on your show too. What's his name? Who do you just have on here? He just did something with Nas.
Oh, Bangles.
Yeah.
Still Bangles.
Bangles. Yep. Yeah. Something with him would be dope.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a big scene out here. So I can't really pick the names. I just know it's real crazy, man.
Yeah, and you work closely with Dr. Zeus. That's someone.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the homie right there. Yeah, we worked. The first record we did together was a song called "Break the Walls." Yeah, we did that, and that was dope. We were just talking about bringing all people together on that record. So it was a powerful, unifying type of song. Yeah, so just dropped this new record with Dr. Zeus called One for the Ages. Very special record because this song and the video was shot for it in Cairo. And so I was actually venturing out, you know, to Egypt. And when I was out there, man, I saw the pyramids of Giza. I just immediately thought of that record. And, you know, I had these bars and I just finished the record while I was there in Cairo. I finished the record and I recorded a video while I was out there. And I was just like, yo, no one's ever rapped in front of the pyramids before. Like I've seen singers.
Have you seen the stuff about the Giza pyramids?
Yeah, right just now? Recently. Yeah, how they got the whole structure underground.
The whole structure.
Yeah, underground. Like I mean,
that goes
to this
down
day,
kilometers,
right?
Kilometers.
And you got like, you know, all this information from 4,500 years ago or however long the pyramids were built. Now you learn this new information, so it adds even more mystique to it. And now you got Lazarus rapping in front of him, man.
That's actually crazy.
You timed that to perfection, bro.
Yeah, right.
You did.
Definitely. But I'm excited about that because I got a lot of powerful things to talk about on that record. Like I'm getting deep with the philosophical bars, and I used to do that a lot, but I'm just excited to be able to drop bars like that again on here. You know, I think people are going to definitely enjoy what I got to say. A lot of social commentary.
For sure, man. One more thing I wanted to speak about was the Wu-Tang tour.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a massive look, especially for nostalgia, especially for like our generation. You know, that was the first group that I actually bought a CD from.
Yeah.
That was, you know, the Wu-Tang Forever album. That was the first album I bought.
Yeah, that was the album that actually got me to want to rap.
Yeah. And then I had to backtrack and get the 36 Chambers and all of that. And then they had their own individual albums and whatnot. But I mean, what was that like? And how did you even get yourself to tour with Wu-Tang?
Yeah. So, I mean, just first and foremost, the Wu-Tang Clan, definitely my biggest inspiration. Like that, they were the group that made me want to actually grab the pen and start rapping. If it wasn't for Wu-Tang, I would never be Lazarus. Like that was the motivating factor for me. So for me to then turn around and be able to tour with them is just incredible. So I connected with Divine 7i, who is cousins with Ghostface Killah and RZA. And I met him at the barbershop in Vegas. And I was just going over some of the songs that I was doing with Russell Simmons with my barber. So he overhears it. He's like, oh, he just got done doing some shows with Ghostface and Raekwon. And so he just connected with me on social media. And like some months later, you know, he hit me up and said he played one of my records to Ghostface. And that Ghostface wanted to link up. So when Ghostface came to Vegas, I actually linked up with Ghostface at that time. And he just like, it was an immediate chemistry right there. And to the point where I started opening up for Ghostface, got a record with Ghostface, Decapitation Chamber, which came out shortly after our last interview. That had a visual came out with that one with me and Ghostface. And then before I knew it, we talked to Tarif, the show manager for the Wu-Tang Clan, and I was performing as the main opening act for the whole Wu-Tang. And then it was Wu-Tang and Nas. We did like 35 cities around the world. And that experience was just breathtaking, man. Just to be in front of that crowd of people. Because you understand, you opening up for the Wu-Tang Clan, like you got to really deliver to these fans. These are the most like intricate hip hop fans.
Of course.
So you got to deliver. And so getting on that stage and being able to win that crowd over each and every time was just a big confidence booster.
Definitely, man. Definitely repping it for the Desis as well, representing the Pakistani community around.
Yeah, because it's all, you know, the whites and blacks and I mean, a mixed crowd, Latinos, like everybody.
Yeah,
that's the thing in the
everyone,
crowd.
yeah.
You see everybody for hip hop. Like that's what I love about hip hop the most is the unifying factor. Like all races together. People would never hang out with each other in real life, but you see them all hanging out, mingling during the hip hop concert. You know.
But that must have been like one of your highlights.
Yeah.
Of your like hip hop journey and your
Definitely.
like, rapping journey.
Yeah, with that many people performing in front of like 20K, 30K, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And what can we expect from you for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
And the rest of 2025? What can we expect from you as a rapper, doctor, everything?
Doctor is, you know, steady paced. I'm seeing patients, many patients a day. I'm a medical director in Las Vegas as well, so that it keeps me busy. So I'm doing that. But on the side of that, with the hip hop career that I have, like I said, we got this record. I got this record that just dropped with Dr. Zeus, One for the Ages. Got an album that's coming out. I can't specify the exact month. I know our first single from the Detroit to Antiphil project with Emiway is getting ready to come out in the next couple months. So we got that coming out and then a full album to back it up. And then we got an India tour and everything else planned with that as well.
Sick.
And then I'm going to go to Pakistan with my guy from D12 and we're going to go and scout some talent over there in Pakistan. Got new projects with my artist, Gaki 1000, getting ready to come out as well. So look out for that. Little Kid's got massive hunger, talent. Shout out to my man, Asif Bali. Shout out to my brother, Amir. It was just his birthday. My big brother, one of the big motivating factors for me in hip hop. He's a boxer. And Mark Henry. I'm actually meeting up with Mark Henry in Vegas for WrestleMania. It's coming out. Yeah, we talked about wrestling. Yeah, Mark Henry, that's one of my best friends. So yeah, we're gonna be hanging out in Vegas for WrestleMania this year.
Yeah,
Nice.
what a best friend to have, man.
Yeah, no, he's
Mark
a great
Henry, the legend.
He's a great guy.
Yeah,
great
man,
guy.
big up him. Yeah, now big up yourself as well, man. It's been a pleasure, my bro.
Absolutely, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes. And, you know, at LAZ Detroit, follow me on the socials.
Of course.
Big things on the horizon. Whether you want to be a doctor or a rapper, let me know. I can guide you in both. I can guide you in both. Let's go.
Love that.